Sick.
Going live. And. Okay, I think we should be live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Path. It's Jack, and it's Dara, and we are here to talk about tournaments because we were at Warhammer World last weekend when everyone else was chilling out in the WTC out in Belgium, I believe. We were living our best lives in England in Warhammer World. I think Jack is after freezing on me here, which is a little bit unfortunate, but hopefully he'll be back in a sec. Anyway, hello everyone and welcome to the stream. Today we are going to be talking a little bit about our tournament experiences in Warhammer World, how we got on, how we did, all that good stuff. So for anyone who doesn't know, myself and Jack both attended the Golden Ticket event in Warhammer World last week. And yeah, we had a lot of fun there. A lot of fun. We both played World Leaders, which was pretty cool. We both brought drastically different lists. I brought something of a more, what I would say is a conventional World Leader list, and Jack decided to go off the rails and bring something completely different. So before Jack joins back in here, I think we've got a little bit of tech issue on his side. I will just break down how the stream is going to go. Basically, we're going to talk a little bit first about how we found the event overall. So generally, kind of like, our experience there. Did we have fun? All that kind of good stuff. And then we're going to dive a little bit into the lists that we brought, and then we are going to move into our games, and we're going to go game by game depending on how each of us are feeling about that and stuff. But yeah, to kick it off, a little bit of information about the event. So it was 6 rounds there. It was a 62-person event, as far as I'm aware. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of really kind of cool people hanging out there and stuff. There was Mikey from Hellstorm. There was Dan from Lookout Sir. And yeah, the field was actually surprisingly very competitive going into it, because there was a lot of Eldar, there was a lot of Imperial Knights, there was a lot of other meta armies. There was a GSC list floating around with a Shadow Sword, I think it was. And yeah, overall was pretty scary facing down the barrel of all that. And yeah, it was pretty good, pretty good. I think we have Jack back. Jack, are you once more here with
Can you,
us?
can you hear me?
I think you're coming through. Yeah, I can hear you on my end anyway.
Cool.
Hopefully, stream can
Okay,
hear you
don't know
too.
why my internet chose that second to shit itself.
Well, yeah,
So
what a phenomenal moment. I think I rambled a little bit, but yeah, I kept us going.
I
Anyway,
heard all of it because I never dropped at
oh
all on
well,
my end. So
phenomenal.
that was good.
Yep.
That was
Chat
good.
says you're back. So everyone's saying
Good
hello on the
stuff.
right. Hello, hello. So yeah, Jack, let's just go straight into it. Let's get straight into it. How did you find last weekend? How did you find the Golden Ticket events?
It was really fucking good.
Yeah.
It's it's the only, I'll say, the only fun tournament I've been to since Warhammer Fest, and I've been to like 4 or 5 since Warhammer Fest. So yeah, I mean that's not quite, that's hyperbole, but like it's pretty much true. Is like it was amazing. Like the vibe was really good. We were talking about it a lot over the weekend.
Yeah, I feel like
The
we actually
vibe,
said it like quite a bit more than I don't know. I think we were both feeling it. That
yeah,
that
the,
the vibe is a little bit different at these GW run events, and I think I
it's
really like
different
it.
than at GW. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it was fantastic.
How
Yeah,
would you
everyone was
define
really
it?
nice.
Like, how would you explain to people who weren't
I
there what this vibe kind of is
the
like?
the way I described it to you was like innocent almost, right? Like innocent, and but you know what I mean? Like it was all very,
Yeah,
everyone was very positive about everything,
yeah.
but in like the best possible way.
There was very
It
little
wasn't,
like, oh, I really hate the game right now. I really hate this
yeah,
army. Blah blah blah. Even the people who were bringing really meta armies, there was a lot of like interesting spins. Like the GSC list that you played with
yeah,
the Shadow Sword was a
yeah.
little bit of a unique take, which was pretty awesome.
That's
But yeah, I
that's
feel
very
like
fun.
the way I would say it is like it's a little bit more kind of casual, but in a really really good sense. In the fact that like everyone's kind of there for the same reason: throw dice, have some fun, make some new friends, meet up with old friends, that kind of a vibe. And
Mm.
I just feel like the pressure is kind of taken off a little bit compared to the
Yeah,
UKTC events, which I still find incredibly good fun. But like it's like a different type of fun, right?
yeah. I also think this event. I mean, kind of spoilers, I guess, but this event was so good just because I think 4 of our 6 games we were on tables next to each other,
Yes,
like
yeah,
literally the next 2 tables to each other. We kept dodging each other.
yeah, yeah. So we were
um,
always like right next to each other, so it was kind of like feeding off each other's hype, which was pretty nice as well. And yeah, I mean, obviously, a tournament set in Warhammer World is a very, very cool environment because
yeah,
you know, you have the general buzz of like people being in Warhammer World, which is obviously like, you know, a lot of people are excited and stuff. But you also kind of have the fact that you have the exhibition, which we had access to as part of our ticket. You had like Bugman's, which is great because points are good. And you know, you're playing in this really cool like castle courtyard kind of vibe as well. I don't know, the whole thing was really cool.
yeah,
And I must say, the event was run really, really well. Like I think it
yeah.
Stephen was the
Stephen Wren, I think,
yeah,
was the event runner, and he was phenomenal. He was
yeah,
so friendly. He
yeah.
learned
Like
like it was a 60-player tournament, and he learned like most people's names by the end of the
it was
weekend, which is
crazy. He was
insane.
coming up like, and you know, he knew your previous games. He knew how you'd been
Yeah,
doing. He knew what the vibe was. He was just really clued in, and that little personal touch, I think, actually added an awful lot from
like
my
really
experience.
invested. It was
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It made me feel like I was like kind of being listened to, and I don't know. It just felt like we were all kind of helped to create that community feeling that was there, and even like the
yeah,
fact that you know lunch was included as part of the ticket, so we all had lunch together,
yeah.
which was really nice too.
That's cool.
Um, all stuff like that. It's very simple things, but it really adds up to kind of you know help out a lot. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for anyone who didn't see our live stream last week, you might have missed what lists that we brought to this event. So, do you want to start with your list, or will we start with mine? Do you want to start with the boring
I
stuff or the cool stuff?
we can start with the meme stuff and then go into like the try hard whack stuff. So to start with, I took a SKU list. Some might say. It was Angron, which is great. Angron, we love him. We know what he does. 2 squads of 10 jackals with icons and skull smashers. And then we had 1 unit of 2 spawn. Spoilers, really fucking good. A 4 shrug is really obnoxious. 1 bloodmaster, so their little bloodletter character dude on foot, or 40 mil on a deep on a deep strike base, as I referred to him for the whole weekend. We then had a Lord of Skulls, who is 525 points. And then we had
525 points of a good time, am I right?
yeah, okay. And then we had a Bloodthirster, who is back there. I need to stop taking him because he doesn't fit in any of my boxes, so that's fun. And then I also had a Night Abominant, because I had him painted and he was the only big knight I had painted at the time.
I
Still
mean,
actually.
at the time you were pretty eager about bringing him, but I think that Night Abominant took a phenomenal amount of abuse from you and me over the weekend.
I negged him all weekend
100%,
long.
yeah, 100%.
He was so bad.
Yeah, we talked so much shit to this guy. Like, I would just be like, I'd come up to the table. It didn't really matter what he would be doing. I would just shake my head and be like, fucking hell, this guy is trash. Like,
So as a run through, just like a whistle stop tour, I forgot his 2 data sheet abilities for the first 2 games. So I mean that didn't help his cause. He should just have easier rules to remember or bigger guns. That's what I'm saying. And then after that he what did he do? Oh, he did sweet fuck all. He got run over by some blood crushers. He then got one shot by 3 Paragon warsuits. He got overwatched to death by Dire Avengers. And then he stood on an objectival game and literally did nothing in my last game.
powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so ultimately a massive skew list, and I suppose you brought it with the intention of kind of not really caring too much about the tournament, in the sense of like caring about doing
my record
well, for want of a better word. Yeah, your record, exactly. And kind of going into it with the attitude of like, gonna have a blast, run a load of big monsters around, people will have a laugh, I'll have a laugh with them, the games will be over quick so we can get more drinks in, etc., etc. And do you think the list kind of played out to your expectations in the sense of like it did that? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It was so funny. There were so many explosions that did like 20 mortal wounds, like it, and like chain explosions, like so much fun.
Yeah.
Um,
And
like
it seemed like a lot, obviously, from the perspective of playing alongside you for most of the games. It did seem like the vibe was excellent. Like you and your opponent were like shouting and stuff. I think when, I mean, spoilers, but there was a moment in the first game. Actually, I won't say it. There was a moment in the first game where I'm pretty sure the whole hall heard what had happened, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, I think like I I would say surprisingly to me anyway, coming away from the event, your impressions were very very good for the list, and I think I warmed up to the list as we were there as well, in terms of my opinion
we'll
of it.
get
Because let's be real, I was negging you hard on stream last
you
week, being
were,
like, "This list is trash."
yeah, you were.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and how wrong
we'll
I
get to that.
was.
We'll get to that when we get to the results, I guess, at the end.
I guess we will. Yeah, I guess we will. We'll
And list
leave
tweaks.
people waiting for that one. We won't share too much about our final standings in case preserve the watchability of the stream.
Mystique. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The mystique. I like that. That's good. That's good. But yeah, so that was your list. Very, very cool
Yeah.
and fun list that I have now gained an awful lot of respect for. And actually, I just love it. It's so funny when it's on the table, and like a lot of people are coming up to you, kind of just being like, "Why?
What is that? No, loads of people haven't seen a lot of skulls before.
Yeah, it's not that common, especially like
It's because it's shit.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it is what it is, I guess. So yeah, I brought what I would say is a little bit more of a conventional World Eaters list. I think I'd like to think that I put my own spin on it. And it's sort of a list that I developed over a series of RTTs and practice games that I've been playing here. And it has a butt ton of characters in it. So what it is Angron in the Warlord. We've got Lord Invocatus, who is sometimes attached to 8-band, sometimes not. We have Khorne, and we have 2 Masters of Executions. One has the Glaive and one is Favorite of Khorne. We've got 2 10-man Jackal squads. We have 2 10-man Berserker squads and 1 5-man Berserker squad. And generally, Khorne will always attach to one of these, and the Glaive Mo will attach to the other 10-man, and then the Favorite of Khorne will attach to the 5-man. It's generally how I was running them all weekend. We also have 6 regular 8-bounds, and we have a Rhino. So, as I said to all my opponents across the weekend, it's a Ronseal list. It does exactly what you think it does, gets in your face as quickly as possible, and minces stuff up. And by and large, it did do that a lot of the time. It was a really... So, like, for anyone who kind of has watched a bit of the channel before or knows the kind of lists that I like to bring, I like to bring lists with a minimal amount of complexity in the list design phase, minimal amount of combos and all that kind of stuff, so that when it actually gets to playing the game, I can focus on skill expression through micromanaging movement, charges, and decision making on the board. And this list, I feel like, epitomizes that, because there's no tricks about this list. It's just like all of these units can move really fucking fast and can be in your face almost immediately. Like some of the quarter zone deployments, I was like literally in front of my opponent with most of my army in turn 1. And that's kind of how it played out, which I think was pretty fun. And I really, really enjoyed running the list. And I think I will be running it again soon, but we'll get to that maybe at the end of the stream. But yeah, Jack, any thoughts on my list? Or is it just super boring to your wild eyes at this point?
You know that I want to try the Glaive Mo, because
yeah,
I've only played him once and he only made combat once in that game. And watching your Glaive Mo over the weekend has made me want to run one, basically. Otherwise, like it's a fairly it's a World Eaters list, right?
Yeah,
it's along the lines of stuff that I've been writing for like competitive stuff. Although, spoilers, I'm not going to stick to this as a competitive list because I think it has legs, and was hilarious. Like it's a good solid list. It's definitely your kind of vibe, I think, based on stuff you ran in 9th.
Yeah, it definitely suits my play style. I think it's probably a little bit more mono combat-y than what I would have done before.
Yeah.
I always like to have a couple of Leviathans and stuff in, but long gone now. And I would say by and large,
good fucking riddance.
Yeah, well, 07 to my boys. By and large, I think the list functioned like quite well. The 8-bound I'm a little bit maybe iffy on, but they still had their place in several games. The ability to apply super fast pressure, I really enjoyed. Glaive Mo, star of the show, he was definitely my MVP over the entire weekend, I would say. Khorne, also incredibly solid. Invocatus had moments where, I really found that in some games, not having him attached to the 8-bounds was really, really useful. Having an extra little trade piece, especially in the games where there was more, units on the table that I had to take care of, like the Eldar and stuff, and then merging them with the 8 bound for games with knights and stuff. But yeah, we'll get to those when we get to them. But I think it's fair to say the field was pretty disgusting going into this event. It was a large proportion of knights, large proportion of Eldar, and quite a lot of Marines, which are not that pleasant for us to fight into as well. So yeah, how did you feel about it? Like looking at it on BCP going into this event, it was pretty scary, right?
It was, although you managed to convince me that my list was going to do really well into Custodes, which I then just didn't play all weekend. It was, yeah. I mean, I think it was fine. But I know I spent all weekend like wishing to play Marines as well because I didn't play Marines very much. And yeah, like so there were a lot of Marines, there were a lot of Custodes, a lot of Imperial Knights, which I think we both experienced a fair amount. What else?
God, yeah,
A lot
we
of
played so much Knights.
a lot of Eldari as well, I guess.
Lots of Eldar,
which
Eldar.
we also both experienced a little bit.
Yep. Yep. We had a pretty cursed run, I would say. I think it's fair to say.
In terms of factions, yeah, I think if you look at the lists, less so.
Yes.
Some of the lists weren't as like heavy hitting as they definitely could have been.
Yeah. We'll get to that. Let's not spoil anything.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, I see in chat, Mark, about the 8-bound rerolling ones. So I always remembered it for the unit itself. I forgot in almost all my games that it was an aura until I think it was game 5 when I played against Knights, and then I was like, hang on a minute, Angron's standing next to these goons. I know what that means. It means he can reroll ones, which was really useful. But I actually did a neat little trick in the Eldar game where I ran Invocatus in first into a Wave Serpent and activated him so he could take some wounds off the Wave Serpent, which meant it went below starting strength so the 8-bound could fully reroll their wounds against it, which I thought was a single wrinkle formed in my smooth marble brain in that moment, and I patted myself on the back. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the games. So there was 6 rounds to this really, really fun event. 3 rounds on Saturday, 3 rounds on Sunday. Now, we came into round 1 on Saturday. I was feeling pretty rough because you'd taken me on a nice little pub crawl around Nottingham the night before.
It's fun.
And I had probably had a little bit more to drink than I had wanted, and we were going to day 1 with the intention of putting away a lot of pints in Bugman's, and I think
it was only 5 pints on Friday night.
I mean, I hadn't eaten all day, so
5 across the day on Saturday. It was fine.
Yeah, sure. So we're going to talk through our games. We'll go through the rounds basically together. So one by one, we'll both talk about round 1, then we'll talk about round 2. That's the format of how this stream is going to run. And yeah, let's start with round 1. I was playing into Sisters of Battle, and you were playing into Imperial Knights, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So why don't you kick it off here?
So I'm actually into Imperial Knights, and I was basically like, I lose if I go second. Just because it was a Valiant, which is one of the big boys, like the really big boys, a thermal cannon, Gatling cannon, big boy as well. I think Crusader, and then a sword and rapid fire battle cannon fella, and then like 3 little ones. So two Helverins, their auto cannons, and a Warglaive, which is the sword and spear one. And I was like, if I go second, I've just lost. Fortunately, I went first because basically when I realized that I would lose if I went second, I frontlined everything, literally everything. Because if I went first, then it would win me the game, and if I went second, it didn't matter anyway. So I went first. I rolled up my blood blessings. I got advance and charge. My 1 CP went straight on a 6-inch advance for Angron. He landed 3 inches away from the Knight Valiant, which has a harpoon and a flamer. He then promptly overwatched, decided to roll the harpoon first, hit, anti-monster 4+, just did 12 mortal wounds to Angron with the first shot of the game.
That was the moment everyone in the hall heard heard some screaming.
That was very funny.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed that quite a lot.
The rest of his Overwatch only took another 3 wounds off Angron, though, which was phenomenal. Angron survived on 1 wound and got into the Valiant. My Bloodthirst on the other side of the battlefield made an 11-inch charge into one of the Armigers. one of the Helverins.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
I
you
think it was
noted
the
the 11
Warglaive
inch
actually.
charge. That was
Yeah,
wild.
it was the
Yeah.
Warglaive. And he obviously didn't have any CP to interrupt. Angron went first, did 37 damage to the Valiant and one-shot it. It then exploded, doing d6 plus 2 mortal wounds to everyone within 6 inches, including Angron, who died and then exploded himself and did d6 mortal wounds to everyone within 6 inches.
Just this sets the
Um,
theme for how your weekend went, pretty much, I would say, quite well.
so that happened, and then I activated the Bloodthirster, who also one-shot the Helverin. Warglaive, less impressive. Still one-shot the Warglaive. Warglaive then exploded as well. And the Bloodthirster just consolidated in and tagged one of the Helverins, I think. And basically that was game over. He had 3 big knights and 3 little knights at the start of the game, and before he got to move anything, he had 2 big knights and 2 little knights.
It's a substantial loss, especially taking out the Valiant. You know, it's such a high value target.
It's got a lot of shooting.
Yeah, a lot of guns, and a lot of guns that are capable of dealing with Angron.
Yeah, and my other big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because then he just rolled quite badly for the first couple of turns. The sword and battle cannon knight went into the Lord of Skulls, like a wounded Lord of Skulls, and did something like 6 damage, and that was it. The Lord of Skulls clapped the shit out of him back, and the Bloodthirster just rampaged through the remaining Armigers. It ended up with there was a bit where it got a bit tight later on, where he had only the thermal cannon and Gatling cannon knight left, and I had 10 jackals left, and then just rolled the natural 666 to bring Angron back. He hid behind a building, ingressed in, hid behind a building, jumped out, and did 63 damage to the last remaining knight, with 9 attacks and 5 sixes to hit, which was, pretty.
Yeah, because you had sustained up, right?
Yeah.
So
that was pretty funny. He obviously then exploded too. But was his last night.
So obviously, it's a given at this point in this game that there will be explosions.
Yeah, that was also the only game that I took fixed secondaries. I took Bring It Down, obviously, because knights. I also took Engage, which I didn't score that well on. In my head, it was cool, 4 big things. They're just going to go to sit in the 4 corners. But that didn't really start happening until late game. So, yeah.
So, what was the score in that game?
So I won that one 90-51.
Big.
Yeah, I mean, I killed a third of his army in turn 1 before he got to move it. So, yeah.
It's big opening salvo. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that was it was a really fun game. I spoke to him a bit afterwards. He'd come up from almost as far away as me. So, yeah. It was a good fun game. What about you? What about your sister's game?
Yeah, so I played Sisters in round 1. Really nicely painted army. Actually made the cabinet as well for best painted, which was really cool to see, because definitely deserved it. There should be some pictures of my games coming up on the screen beneath my image here. But yeah, so it was, I don't want to say a standard Sisters list, because I have no idea what that constitutes these days, but there was tons of infantry, there was a couple of tanks, there was some penitent engines, was all there anyway. I rolled up to go first, which was quite nice. So I dumped Angron into a squad of Repentia, I think it was, in turn 1. Whichever ones have a 4+ feel no pain and 2 wounds anyway. And I dumped my 8-bound...
Arco Flagellants, right?
Yeah, potentially the Arcos.
Yeah.
And I dumped the 8-bound and Invocatus into a squad of, I think it was Battle Sisters or something like that, with the intention of tagging into the Exorcist behind them once I killed them. So they did that very successfully, shocker, and tagged into the Exorcist, which was nice, was able to shut that down pretty quickly. And Angron was only able to kill 6 out of the 10 Arcoflagellants because they're 2 wounds and feel no pain, which was slightly irksome, I would say, but quite funny as well at the same time, that I was kind of like, come on, Ron, these people are naked. You can do better than this. And he was just like, no, I can't. So he took a bit of a battering back from them because they kind of powered up. I think they took him down to 12 wounds or something like that. And I was just like, cool, it's going to be that kind of a game, I guess. But then it wasn't at all that kind of a game, because in his turn, he failed to kill Angron completely. Charged penitent engines, Repentia, shot Retributors and an Exorcist into him. Angron was just like, cool, no problem, brushed it all off. and basically in the swing back took out most of the infantry in combat with him and a penitent engine as well. So he cleaned up there. Then a squad of Repentia went into my 8-bound. Kind of bounced, kind of didn't. They killed almost all the 8-bound, but the 8-bound killed them back. So that was pretty good for me because I kind of sent the last 8-bound rampaging through his lines. And then in my turn 2, I basically was like, cool, time to turn the pressure cooker on. And most of my berserkers hopped out of the transport that they were in or jumped out of the ruins that they were hiding behind. I kept Khorne in reserve at this point. He was just chilling. But yeah, I really pushed in hard. Glavemo went into the Triumph of St. Catherine, the really big podium thing, and just body slammed it. I think you walked over for that point, and he was just like, cool, I'm going to dump like 20 mortal wounds on this thing, and just did, which was phenomenal. And yeah, I kind of just swept in from 2 flanks. There was a pretty good pushback from the sisters in their turn 2, but I ingressed Khorne in a really useful position with his 10 berserkers, and they kind of swept in my turn and just completely dominated one flank. So basically the outcome was by turn 3, at which point Angron had also resurrected. I put so much pressure on the sisters player that they just hadn't been able to move out of their deployment zone at all while I was dominating the flexible tactical missions in the middle of the board. And yeah, inevitably Angron coming back kind of sealed the deal as well. He just kind of swept the last flank of sisters that were holding out and was able to close that one out. I think you have my scores because I don't.
Yeah. It was, you won 165.
Yeah, it was a pretty good win. It was a little bit dicey at some points. I would say in the middle of the game when Angron had died and hadn't come back yet, there's always that pressure in the back of your mind of like, okay, cool, if he doesn't come back, it's bad news right here. But he did, which was great. And I was kind of still confident because Glavemo had just like done unholy amounts of damage and Khorne and the homies were just sweeping in as well. And I was just like, all I have to do is play the game safely and just do things by the numbers, by the books, and it'll be completely fine. So that was the end of round 1, which I think was okay for me.
Yeah. So then 1-0, both, riding high.
Yep, 1-0.
We then so that first round we weren't on tables next to each other. But from this point on, we pretty much just were. So at 1-0, we were one table away from matching each other. I went into GSC, and I believe you went into Custodes.
Yes, I played a very actually we both played
meta factions.
We both played meta factions. The lists were actually not meta at all and super interesting.
So my guy said that he didn't want to bring like a meta list, so he basically what he did was bring 1,500 points of a meta list and then a shadow sword. Unfortunately for me, shadow swords are the Titan killer variant.
It was actually it was a meta specific for your list because it had all the good bits of GSC and then the thing that would specifically take out most of your army.
So the shadow sword one is the flat 12 damage gun that I think is dev wounds against Titanic, and also heavy. So that's fun. And it's a D3 shotgun that is strength 24 or something like that, I think.
Strength enough is what it is.
Strength enough.
Yeah.
Basically, I realized I was going to have a bad time. And so, much like my Knights game, frontlined everything and hoped I went first, and then did go first. Couldn't make the charge because he managed to wrap the Shadow Sword in stuff that I couldn't get through, basically, with my shooting, because my shooting is pitiful in that list. So the Lord of Skulls with his really impressive, definitely worth 500 points shooting. He killed 6 Gene Stealers, I think, which was good. He spiked on some 5-up invulns, but still good. His clapback, the Shadow Sword, one-shot the Lord of Skulls.
Oh, it was good.
Because why would he not?
Of course.
Yeah, so that was one of my 4 big boys gone at the end of Battle Round 1.
Only 4 more rounds to go. It's almost like you had one big boy for each round.
in my turn 2, Angron made a charge into the Shadow Sword and killed it in 1 round, which was pretty good.
Probably very important for the remaining health of the game.
So the Shadow Sword exploded as well, which is very funny.
I have such I would call it almost a core Warhammer memory during this game of looking over and you were balancing a box full of Gene Stealer cult models on your knees while your opponent was just reaching in and pulling out fistfuls of them and dumping them in your deployment zone. And I was just like,
the turn 2 movement phase.
yeah, this is how you play against GSC. You play the game
so
together.
Yeah. Yeah, that so yeah, I strat reserve my abominant in that game as well. I strat reserve my abominant in game 1 as well. But so I strat reserved my abominant and used him to cover. I ingressed him to get rid of a blip, which I think might have been a mistake because he spent the rest of the game just chasing a 20-man squad of whatever the fuck the basic troops are up the board.
The acolytes,
and failing to kill them. Yeah,
peak abominant from the weekend of just like, I'm gonna chase after these fucking hobos like running around.
Took him 3 turns to kill the squad.
Yeah, of course,
of
course it did.
That was good fun.
Of course it did.
So that was what he did. The rest of the game was basically like Angron went down eventually. Like on his go turn, he killed. So his turn 2, he killed Angron and the Bloodthirster. And then my turn 3, the Abominant came in and started clearing up like some of the stuff. Angron came back almost immediately, which was very funny. And the Abominant cleared some space out of the mid board, so that I could basically drop Angron in like the edge of his deployment zone, and he just went on a rampage through his backline in the late game. Unfortunately for me, he did the same with a full squad of flamers, like the hand flamer boys. Turns out Jackal's not very good against mashed hand flamers.
It's wild. I would have never guessed.
We did get a fun rules interaction though, which I think you've talked about in the Discord a little bit. So I tried to charge from behind a wall because I don't want to eat Overwatch flamers. With like 6 or 7 jackals, which I thought could probably have done some damage to the 10-man squad. Like, it probably could have killed them.
Maybe. I think that's not unreasonable, yeah.
I think I had lethal hits up at the time as well, which, yeah. And Overwatch now specifies that it's the start or the end of the movement, including charge. So my opponent, which was fair enough, that was how I understood the rule as well when he said it. Because they were pistol flamers, could Overwatch at the end of the phase because pistols allowed shoot into combat. However, I mentioned it to someone, you and some other people, I think, after the game, because it was a fairly important thing. Like he got capture any outposts, and I like that squad just wouldn't have been there for that if I'd made a charge probably. But so I spoke to some people after the game, and they were like, "No, pistol specifies in your own turn." So I went and talked to the judges a little bit just to know for myself. And yeah, apparently pistols and the other one is big guns never tire specifies you can only use that rule in your own turn. I know there's been a bit of discussion in Discord. Yeah.
Super important one to know. Especially for big guns never tire. The pistols is a little bit more niche, probably only comes up for GSC.
Yeah.
But big guns never tire comes up
Sisters.
like literally pretty much every single game. So, yep.
Yeah. It comes up for Sisters as well, because it literally came up in my Sisters game.
It did actually. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a fun rule to learn. Like it's always good learning weird interactions. So
yeah, and I feel like a TO ruling from the official Warhammer team in Warhammer World is probably as close as you're going to get to an FAQ on the spot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was most of my game. Like it was a gorgeous army.
His Shadow Sword was so hot.
Yeah,
so good.
The Abominant did eventually make it through that 20-man squad and stand on like one of the home objectives. It was the one like player placed objectives as well, and our objectives ended up being like a weird snake across the diagonal of the board, but that was it. Yeah, like it was a fun game, and closer than I was expecting it to be. It finished up at 66-76 to him. Played tactical in that, went surprisingly well. Bloodmaster already made his points back. I think he came in, did investigate signals, and then the next turn did deploy teleport homers and behind enemy lines, and then the next turn advanced to destroy a blip, and then the next turn, he did something else that was useful after that. But 85 points, pretty fucking strong.
What a dude.
What about your game too? You had Custodes.
I had Custodes, yes. I had Custodes, and it started reading off like a very kind of standard Custodes list: Emperor's Champion, or Blade Champion, whatever he's called. There was good old Trajan. There was a Shield Captain. So no shockers there. There were some Wardens. There was some Custodian Guard. There was some Sisters. But there was a brick of Aquilin Terminators, which I thought was quite interesting. And there was a Caladius Grav Tank. Caladius Grav Tank. The good old fashioned, this thing likes to kill Angron when it can. So basically lined up, I think we were playing sort of long diagonal hammer or Donivore.
It was from like the halfway up the short edge to the corner of the long edge, I think.
So I was kind of like, cool, because those can't really screen me out that well. So what I'll do is I'll frontline Angron and position the rest of my army that they can surge up in a good first turn if I pull it. And I did not pull it, which I was kind of okay with because I played against Custodes a bunch. And I know that the Caladius is very, very unlikely to actually one-shot Angron. It's only 4 shots. It's got lethal hits against monsters, fair enough. And it is twin-linked. And it is d6 plus 2 damage. But when you know that you're not going first, you can pop up the Feel No Pain. Between that, the chances that they are not going to get all 4 through, they're probably only going to get 2 or 3 through. And then you just have to make an invuln and then hopefully weather a little bit of damage. Is actually super, super unlikely that the Caladius is actually going to kill Angron in one turn. Yeah. And it didn't. It took him down to 8 wounds, I want to say. 8 or 10, I'm not sure. However, what I was not accounting for was the fact that despite cover and despite them only being AP1, who would have thought that about, I think it was like 12 custodian guards with their funny little spears could just randomly kill Angron with the rest of his wounds, even though they're only like AP1 and I've got a 2-up save because I'm in cover. I'm like, what if? Now hear me out, funny Custodes opponent. What if I only roll once from here on in? And I did, and Angron died in turn 1, and I was kind of like scratching my head being like, that wasn't really how the simulation was supposed to go at all. Oh well, I guess I'll just recover from this. And I did, and I sent Invocatus and 6 8-bound into Trajan's Warden Brick, which was kind of straddling an objective. Now, the important thing here was that I also mobbed the Warden Brick with Barney and his 10 Jackals. And I strung them across the whole way, doing the classic, what I call the Rhino Drift, where basically most of the Wardens in the unit were going to have to fight into the Jackals because I based, I think it was something like 5 of the Wardens with Jackals. And they were all like a little bit apart from each other, so he wouldn't be able to do any pile-in. This is the thing, when you notice a Custodes player not move their models so that they're base-to-base touching, you can rush them, and as long as you base them with all your like crappy infantry, they can't consolidate any of their or pile in any of their models, and if they can't get base-to-base touching, they can't fight through each other. So basically what I did was I strung all my Jackals across, so basically it was only Trajan and a single Warden were going to be able to fight into Invocatus and the 8-pounds. Fantastic, I thought. Well done, patting myself on the back again already. I was feeling really good about that. So he still did the fight first, which I was quite surprised about, actually. I didn't think he would. After I explained to him what I was doing in the charge phase, I thought he was kind of just going to be like, cool, I'm just going to wear it. But he still did the fight first. He used Trajan's once per game ability on that, I think. And yeah, basically, Trajan kills 5 of the 6 8-pounds. And then the Lone Warden killed the last of the 8-pound and took Invocatus down to 2 wounds. And I had Fight on Death up because I was kind of feeling a bit nervy about this. So I rolled up my 6 8-pound. One of them fought on death, which I was like, cool, tight. No doubt, this is going to be good.
50% chance coming in clutch.
Oh my god, yeah. And then, so 1 8-pound fought back. I killed 1 Warden and took another down to 2 wounds, and that was all I did to them. And then obviously Barney and the boys got harvested by the rest of the Warden squad, which was no surprise to anyone. And then I was kind of like, cool, I've lost like almost half my army in the first turn of the game, and he's lost 1 Warden. How am I going to come back from this? And somehow I managed to make a really good game out of it. It was very, very close through the mid. I had Glaive Mo chasing that Caladius Grav Tank down for like the entire fucking game. He was like hacking into it. He just wouldn't roll any 6s for me, so the Caladius was just saving. But it was quite funny because he was very reluctant to charge anything into the Glaive Mo because he knew I would fight first, and I always had the CP for the +1 to wound, and I kept being like, yeah, I've got the CP for that, so if you charge in, I'm going to use it. I was just straight up telling him, I was like, if you go in there, I'm spending the CP for that. And he was just like psyched out, which I was like, okay, cool, fine. Which was like fair enough because he didn't really need to do much either. Angron resurrected at one point and was pretty useful in kind of like going around the place, bouncing between an objective in my deployment zone and one in the middle of the board. And Khorne and the homies arrived in from Strat Reserve in like turn 2, I'm pretty sure. and made a charge into the Blade Champion and his squad of guys who had bodied my favorite of Khorne and his squad. And Karen just completely eviscerated all of them, even though he used to fight first on them, but I did -1 damage, so it actually only killed like 2 or 3 berserkers, maybe even less than that. There was a moment, and I actually don't have the picture, so I'm very, very sorry not to show it, but he was like rolling a hit roll and rolled like 8 ones, and they were all like completely in a line, and we were just like, oh my god, we took a picture of it. It was so wild. But yeah, so that was pretty interesting. There was like the game definitely swung against me in the first like couple of turns, and then swung back to me in the middle. So it became quite an interesting balance. And then he had like Trajan in the middle of the board. I sent Glavemo into Trajan, and like the one warden that was left at that point just completely bodied them. And I had like area denial and assassinate, so it was like huge swinging points.
Nice.
So basically, and I'd gone second, so I was scoring bottom of primary, and got to like a finish of his turn, he'd gotten to 76 points, and I was on like 72 points, I think, at that point. And I was looking at the board. I didn't have anyone on an objective except for Karen and the boys, who had spent the entire game sitting on an objective in a ruin. And there was like 3 custodian guard on an objective within reach of them. And I drew like, it was the one to flip an objective, Storm Hostile, I think.
Storm Hostile, yeah.
And man, I don't know what happens. Like, because I was just like, I looked at the score and I was like, I'm on 72 points. If I sit on this objective with Karen and the boys, I will win 77 to 76. And I just didn't do it. I don't really know why. Like, I don't have an excuse. I was kind of just like, I think the vibe of the game was really, really good, and we were really enjoying how close it was. And I was just like, I'm sick of the fact that Karen has done nothing all the game. So I just want to rush this squad, and I rushed them. He didn't fight first or anything because he didn't have the CP for it, but they did not kill them, and they all got killed back in response, except for Karen. And like, basically what it ended up was they tied control of the objective. So I did not control it, so I didn't get the 5 points. I didn't get Storm Hostile, and I lost the game, I think 72-76. You have the score there.
Yeah. Your opponent is also in the chat.
Oh really? No way.
Yeah, James is in the chat.
Oh yes, it was
10
Angron that killed the
ones,
Blade
Baron.
Champions unit. Yeah, 10 ones. Absolutely wild. But yeah, it was just really silly for me. I was just like, afterwards, like, I didn't need to move those guys out, and if I didn't, I just won the game. But the vibe was like so good, because I was just like, fuck it, Karen's gonna send it. I don't really care. And we were talking about it afterwards. Like, I was kind of like, I don't feel bad about losing at all, because it was so close, and like we were just laughing about the Caladius grab tank. And like, yeah, the vibe was just fantastic. So nice to see James as well in chat. Yeah, so couldn't really complain about that one. Went down 72-76. And, both of us sailed down from the lofty heights of game 1 into game 3.
Yeah. So the backstory for this little break is that for some reason, I think one of the other games ran later. There was a medical thing happened.
Yes.
So there was a bit of delay in one of the games. So we had a bit of a big gap between game 2 and 3. And so far until this point, we'd been having a pint per round, game. So we had a pint with game 1, or after game 1, we had a pint after game 2. And then Dara was like, let's go to the bar. So we got another pint. So that was 3 pints in a sweaty hall with not much water around. And we were pretty buzzed, I would say, is the word.
I think we were riding off a high, because even though we both lost our game 2s, I think we both had an awful lot of fun. And there was the 4 people around those tables, so you and me and the 2 of our opponents, the vibe was just like, I don't know, it was really, really good there, I think, in that moment in time. We were all kind of like laughing and stuff. We were all sort of speaking to each other afterwards. And like, it was just a moment where I felt really good about like even the fact that I lost, and like I just didn't really care, because I was just like, win or lose, my game definitely just didn't really matter because it was so close. And then your game, I think, was actually like pretty similar, right? So we were just like, okay, whatever else happens in the rest of today, it's going to be a good vibe. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, had some drinks, and we went into round 3 a little bit not fully there cohesively and coherently, I would say.
Yeah, and we both matched into demons,
which is really interesting.
Which is interesting. My list was your like wet dream. It was your like the Ride of the Roid Herium list.
Oh, it was so good, and it was all modeled so well as well. It was just really cool.
So the list that I played was Scarbrand, a Bloodthirster, 2 Renmasters on chariots or Skullthrone, whatever, the chariot heralds, 3 squads of 6 blood crushers, and 3 of the guys on Juggernaut's characters, all attached to those units. And basically, the Renmasters, the 2 of them, each pick a different target each turn and give, I think, blood crushers or like Khorne units that attack them or something +1 strength, AP, and damage against those units. Which again, against a list that has essentially 4 units, good shit.
It was potent, I would have said.
Yes. So he went first, which was actually probably good because he could only advance a charge with 1 unit, and he didn't do it because I deployed a bit further back from the line. And then my first turn, I was like, you know what? Probably under the influence of a decent amount of pints, because you shamed me for drinking like normal lager, and so I went for like a 5.5% lager or something for the last game. Sure. So under the influence of that, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm going to send everything in at once." And
yeah, you fully sent it in that game. Yeah, it was quite good.
So for context, he had no CP, so it was like he couldn't interrupt, which was fine. I sent a Lord of Skulls into a wounded Bloodthirster. I sent my Bloodthirster into a squad of the one of the Blood Crusher bombs, and I sent Angron into Scarbrand. All of which, like on the charge, maybe kill them, like you'd expect, like maybe not the Blood Crusher
damage, bomb. I think it's fair to say.
Maybe not the Blood Crusher bomb, but like the Lord of Skulls potentially should kill a 12-wound Bloodthirster, and Angron should potentially kill Scarbrand. And Angron left Scarbrand on 2 wounds. The Lord of Skulls did a grand total of 0 damage to the Bloodthirster, and my Bloodthirster killed 1 Blood Crusher. And then on the swing back, he picked up Angron. He didn't kill the Bloodthirster and he didn't kill the Lord of Skulls, but he heavily damaged both. And then in his turn 2, he killed both. And then in his turn 3, he killed the Abominant. And by my turn 3, I had nothing on the table. I had my Bloodmaster and Deep Strike, and then Angron rezzed as well at the start of the battle round, so he was in Deep Strike as well. So the Bloodmaster came in, took an objective in no man's land, scored me some points, and immediately got murdered by a lot of Juggernauts. Angron just dropped down in his deployment zone and kept being a nuisance on his home objective. I think he charged on, failed to kill a Renmaster, which, by the way, has 9 wounds, and then did manage to kill the Bloodthirster that was very heavily wounded by that point, and then also managed to kill Scarbrand, which was very funny. And in that game, I got absolutely annihilated. It was 94-38, including painting. And
that of game my was quick as well. I remember I was like bottom of turn 1.
It was like, you're round 5. What?
Yeah, I was turn 1 and you were round 5, which was impressive, I think.
Yeah. So of my 28 points that I scored in the game, Angron scored 24 of them for me.
What a beast.
So, and the last 4 were my Bloodmaster. Yeah, it was. I think I kept describing it as like a buzzsaw list. Like once it made contact, you were fucked.
Yeah,
like, it did so many mortal wounds and so much damage.
It also looked awesome because it was all the old Khorne Juggernauts, and he had the Forge World Runestorm demons riding chariots pulled by Blood Crushers for the Ren Masters. Cool. It was really good. Really enjoyed it. Also cool to see like Monocorn demons just doing work as well, which is nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Sure. Your demons list that you played was a bit different.
It was a little bit different. Yeah, there's some pics of it on the screen at the minute, I would say. This was the other 4 guys list in the tournament. So it had Be'lakor. It had I can't remember if it was a Lord of Change or Kairos Fate Weaver, one of the big chickens. It had Shalaxi Hellbane. Okay, cool. Had a Great Unclean one and had 3 War Dogs, each of which was themed after one of the Chaos Gods, and they all looked amazing. And had like I think 12 Flamers across 2 units. That was pretty much it. It was a very, very small list. And so again, not to like talk it up too much or use it as an excuse. However, there is no like explanation for why I lost this game other than the fact that I made terrible decisions based off the fact that I was not thinking straight. However, so here's how it went down. So it started off, I think we were playing Hammer and Anvil deployment, or a variant of, in this game.
Yeah.
And I did my El Clasico La Front line, hoping to go first. And I did not. Shalaxi Hellbane had a 9-inch charge to make into Angron, made the charge. So I was like, cash, gonna lose Angron in turn 1. Phenomenal. I did not. Angron went down to 1 wound, swung back, took Shalaxi down to 2 wounds, which I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. It was awesome because we were like, okay, however hype and like off the rails I was at that point, my opponent was like right there with me. So
matching your energy.
He was matching my energy and raising it to a new bar. I think Stuart was his name, and yeah, was like such a cool dude, had a phenomenal army. I was just like, already, he actually also plays World Leaders, so I didn't have to explain any of my rules, which was super nice. And like, yeah, we were just right there. So in my first turn, I drove a rhino into Shalaxi and killed her in combat with it. As I said to you afterwards, naturally, no tank shock, just raw rhino goodness. I had Glavemo walk into the middle of the board, body slam Bellicor. You were there when it happened, because I was talking to Stuart about it during the game, because he was kind of like, is the Glavemo good? Whatever. And I was sort of like, he's been pretty good this tournament. He's been pretty solid. And as I did, he walked in, rolled up the 3 for the attack, so he was on 5 damage.
Yeah.
And just completely body slammed Bellicor in one roll, rolled 5 sixes, I think. No.
Yeah, it's 4. You
4,
did 20
wounds them, took him off the board. So I was like, right, cool, phenomenal. And then I ran Invocatus in the 8 bound into the Great Unclean one, which has a 4-up invulnerable and a 4-up feel no pain. Needless to say, I did not do much damage. I think I did 2 wounds.
You did 2 wounds to it,
yeah, that wasn't great. And yeah, then Shalaxi had died, so I was kind of feeling pretty good. 2 of the greater demons were taken out in turn 1. And the Great Unclean one is like actually really low damage output, like really, really low. Doesn't really do anything. So only killed like 1 8-bound back. Then Stuart brought in a lot of his knights, actually all of them, in that turn. And the 2 up top kind of did a lot of work. They finished off Angron. They killed a bunch of jackals and stuff like that. And then the Khorne knight that came in near the Great Unclean one put a pretty big hole in my 8-bound and actually managed to make its 9-inch charge into them as well. So that wasn't amazing. Meanwhile, then my turn flips around. My Glavemo goes into the Lord of Change, absolutely body slams it. It does another like 20 more.
Another 20. It was another exactly 20.
Another exact 20. Why not? Why not? He's a good lad. So he was like on Stuart's home base in like bottom of turn 2, and I was like, cool. Any minute now, I'll draw capture enemy outposts and behind enemy lines, and just didn't draw them for the whole fucking game, which I was just like, come on. Meanwhile, some flamers had like teleported onto my home field and like flamed my jackals off it, and Stuart drew capture enemy outposts and bind enemy lines, and I was drawing things like defend stronghold, which I was just like, okay. Angron also just didn't resurrect until turn 5 in this game, which I was just like, this is also not amazing. So it was really weird because I was just kind of like running around the board with Khorne and the homies in one area trying to do cleanup work, and Glavemo and the homies in the other area being like, any turn now I will draw some good cards.
Draw the right cards.
It just didn't happen for me. It was kind of like everything I tried to do, I drew the cards that I needed in the previous turn or something like that. It was quite funny. But yeah, me and Stuart had a really good time, and I think the game ended with a pretty big win for him, if I recall correctly.
It wasn't that big. 76-52.
Yeah, okay, maybe not as bad as I remember, but then
not
again,
massive.
A lot of that
not
game was like
not your worst feat of the
over
weekend.
my face. Yeah.
Yes, because we were both.
Yes, yeah. It was pretty funny. But yeah, it was really, really enjoyable, and yeah, like had a really, really nice game against Stuart. As I said, he matched my energy. So day 1 finished, we had just 3 fantastic games each. All my opponents were really, really cool to play against. And yeah, we kind of went out that night. I was like probably, I wouldn't say like down about being 1 and 2. Like I kind of had gone into the tournament with not like a hope, but like a little bit of a kindling in the back of my mind, being like, I can play this list pretty well. And as I say, in my game against James, I just completely threw. Like this is like just stand on the objective and win the game or not. And then I just didn't. And then against Stuart, man, I don't know what happened. It was just funny. It was just really, really good memes. So I didn't really feel
it was
like
good energy at that table.
It was great energy at all my tables, to be honest. And yeah, great armies to play against as well. Like, you know, it's really nice when you play against three like really nicely painted armies in one day as well. It just feels good. So yeah,
Sure.
day one finished. We didn't do too much. We went out for a Five Guys that night, which is pretty good.
Was it 5? Oh yeah, we went to the city centre 5 guys that night, didn't
Yes.
we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then had a few more drinks at some local pubs.
Yes.
That was when I tried to take you to the Irish bar and you said no.
Yeah, you tried to bring me to an Irish bar. I was just like, bro, like that's never going to happen.
No, but the pub we ended up at was pretty good.
It was quite nice, actually. Yeah, quite nice. And
it was that mad dog.
That dog! Running. Yeah, there was a dog in the pub, and it just had the same energy as me during the Demons
doing
game.
A lot of parkour.
Yeah, like Don. Actually, sorry, I see you in the chat, Don. It actually was Thunderhawk energy, like the vibe of the Demons guy. He was like, we were like screaming at each other like during the game. At one point, we just like dropped the game. We were like, let's go and get a drink. We like went to the bar and stuff. Yeah, it was really nice, really nice. So yeah, day 2 rolls around. It's game 4 at this point.
So no.
Oh yeah, sorry. Context.
In the pub on Saturday night, we were looking at other people who were 1 and 2 to see, because they don't do pairings until like 5 minutes before each round. So that because they've had problems with dropping in the past, I think, so they don't want to have to constantly redraw. So we were trying to work out who we might match into, and I think there were 7 Eldar players of 60. Over the weekend, and of those 7, 5 of them were 1 and 2, which was fucking sick. Yep. And I think 3 of the 4 Imperial Knights players were also 1 and 2.
I think all 4.
All 4, okay, were 1 and 2.
Then there was like 3 Space Marine lists.
There was a few Space Marine lists and a couple of Custodes lists.
And the Votan guy.
And the Votan guy. So the Admech guy was actually 2 and 1 though. So
yeah, we had a really rough bracket. We were just like 2 hobos sitting in the 1 and 2 bracket, being like, okay, cool. Who are we going to be the whipping boy for?
Yeah. So we came in on Sunday morning, had the round draw. You got matched into Imperial Knights, and I got matched into Eldari. So
just as the simulations had predicted, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that the Eldari list I had a webway gate, which we looked at and tried to work out why it was 220 points, and we couldn't work it out.
Nope. Still trying.
I still can't work it out.
Still trying. Yeah, I worked out it can screen out pretty much an entire deployment zone in the quarters deployment. Yes, but that's about all it can do.
It can. It also, in my game, it shit out an avatar way closer than me than I was expecting. So
it did that for me as well. Yeah. And there is something about the avatar walking out of the webway gate, which is just like sends a shiver down your spine.
Yeah,
You're just
it's
like,
cool.
Oh, am I playing Dawn of War right now?
Yeah. So it was quite a back and forth game. Fire prisms are fucking unpleasant, like really unpleasant.
Oh my god, especially for your list. Yeah.
The reroll 1 hit and wound as an army rule, and then them also just randomly getting 1 because that's their data sheet ability. Cool. On a 2 shotgun. Cool.
Yep.
So actually they didn't do too much damage to Lord of Skulls. It took them like 3 or 4 turns of shooting to kill him. When he realized that it wasn't that good against the Lord of Skulls, because I think it's not that high strength.
No, I think he might be winning it on 4s actually.
Yeah, it's something like that. For some reason, he either wasn't rolling very well or I was saving well, but he wasn't doing much damage to Lord of Skulls.
I think there's a lot of 4s in that kind of interaction.
So he switched targets to the Bloodthirster and Angron, and it turns out they're pretty good at killing both of those. So he killed Angron very quickly. The Bloodthirster went on a bit of a rampage and made quite a long move up the board. Rangers fucked off, so he was left in no man's land. Instead, charged the webway gate in like turn 2 and blew it up, which was funny. And then consolidated onto his home. The Avatar, fresh from stabbing Angron in the chest with his big spear,
100% in the chest.
Strode back to deal with the Bloodthirster set on his home objective, and took him down to 1 wound fucking hilariously. The Bloodthirster then did his 8 dice, 4-ups on mortal wounds at the end of the fight phase, did 6 mortal wounds to the Avatar. And then in my turn, the Avatar struck first. I struck first. Wait. He struck first. And the Avatar killed the one wound bloodthirster. Hilarious, funnily enough. The bloodthirster then exploded and did 5 more wounds to the Avatar and killed him, which was real funny. And at that point, Angron came back as well, which was perfect timing. Came back via Ingress. I don't think he came back via normal Deep Strike for the whole weekend. He came back via Ingress.
His preferred method of entry for sure.
And then made a decent length charge into a Wave Serpent on his home objective. And in the last turn, I got really lucky with the draw and got capture enemy outpost and storm hostile objective. And Angron was 3 inches away from his home objective, and there was only a Wave Serpent on it. So he made the charge, killed the Wave Serpent. But the important bit is he made the charge. And that was actually where we had the other interaction with the Overwatch thing that we were talking about earlier. Basically, he ended his charge within line of sight of a fire prism, and he was like, "Can I Overwatch?" And the judge ruled no, because Big Guns Never Tire specifies controlling player's turn. But yeah, so I was basically saved by a good pull on cards at the end. I ended up winning 90-83. So
yeah, it was super close game.
That 18-point swing, I think, won it for me. So, which was the primary of holding his objective, and then also, it was just a good pull for me. What else happened in that game that's funny? Abominant did sweet fuck all. He was a defensive strat reserve this time and came on my board edge, and he kept fucking overwatching with Dire Avengers whenever the Abominant moved. Just like basically the first time because they have like lethal hits or something. The first time he did it, he rolled quite high and took like 6 of 22 wounds off it with Overwatch, and I was like, okay. I mean, that wasn't expected, but fine. And then he, just kept doing it. And like they were standing on objective. The Abominant like basically just went and stood on the objective and refused to fucking die. And so because he's OC10, like he struggled to take him off it. Don, they ruled you can't. The GW guys ruled you can't because a Big Guns Never Tire specifies.
You treat it as if it is your shooting phase. However, Big Guns Never Tire specifies the controlling player's turn, not controlling player's phase, and also is an ability which is done out of phase. And when you do interactions out of phase, you don't apply any abilities as well. It's just kind of like the raw sort of thing. There's a couple of different reasons why you can't do it. So that is that.
Yeah. So that was my game 4. Very tight game. Decent opponent, good fun. Angron coming back saved my bacon there a little bit.
Nice.
You had Knights.
I had Knights. I had Dan from the Look Outside podcast as well, and a lovely little Knight army, which I rolled up, did my usual. The front line will work again, and it did in this one. I went first. I hit an Armiger with the 8-band and Invocatus, and I hit one of the 3 big knights, I can't remember which one, and absolutely body slammed it with Angron, which was fine. And then in his first turn, Angron went down, unsurprisingly. However, what was surprising is that I lost 4 of my 6 8-bound to a single battle cannon. Again, one of those things where I was like, all right, boys, you've got cover, all you have to do is roll 3s. And they were like, fuck you, brother, we're only going to roll 1s and 2s. These are flat 3 damage, and I had feel no pain. I was like, all right, surely I'll like shrug some of these.
Some sixes,
and they were just like, nope, we're not going to do that either. So I lost them all. And then the Armiger Warglaive charged into them and picked up the last 2 and whittled down Invocatus a little bit as well. So that was a little bit of an unfortunate trade out in the first turn, and things sort of spiraled out of control from there, because obviously Angron died and didn't actually come back in this game at all, which was huge. So that meant that Dan's Knights became favoured in round 2, so he gained 3 CP and got a 5-up Feel No Pain on all his Knights. That was pretty rough. So I was trying to like deal with that with very diminishing resources, which were basically just 10-man squads of Berserkers, which I was kind of like, okay, these guys definitely can't kill big knights. And I brought in Karn's squad. He got overwatched. I lost like 6 Berserkers in Overwatch, which was really rough as well. And Glaive Mo was in the middle of the board, just like trying to hold it up. And he held up the middle of the board for an admirably long time as armigers just kept being rammed in there. And then eventually a big boy came in there as well, and he was just like, "Man, I can't do it anymore." And I'm like, "I know, man, but all I need to do is roll a 666." And then Dad's coming back, and he just did not come back.
Nice.
And that was it. I got properly whopped in that game, as far as I remember.
It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was your biggest defeat. So it was 40-86
Yeah,
versus Knights.
yeah.
Um,
It was
Pretty good
a stinger, but it was a really fun game again. Dan was a really enjoyable opponent to play against, and I think he gave me a little bit more what's the word, like, credit than I deserved for my performance, because I was kind of just like, "Yeah, man, you kicked the crap out of me." He's like, "No, I got really lucky here and you got really unlucky there." I'm like, "I don't know, man, you just outpositioned me." Like, that it is what it is. But that was fine. So then we roll into round 5, the second last round of the tournament. I'm playing into Knights again, almost the same list, in fact, and you are playing into Sisters of Battle.
Sisters, yeah. So this was the other game where we didn't play on tables next to each other, but instead you were stood right behind me on the next row back, because obviously our records changed.
Close enough to hear you.
Close enough to hear me.
Yeah.
And then so my first turn went pretty well. I think I went second in this game actually, but my first it was going pretty well. He moved up to take some shots. It was a weird sisters list. It had a decent amount of battle sisters, but also then 2 exorcists, 2 squads of seraphim, Morvenval, and a 3-man of paragons. Castigator was in there. It's the first time I've ever seen one of those on the tabletop.
Oh my god, no way! I never saw that in that guy's army.
Cool model. Big squad of novitiates with the he was saying it was the equivalent of the Bonk Martyr. So like just a massive mortal wound monster thing. On a Palatine, I want to say.
Yes.
And then 2 thermal spear war dogs. Not war dogs, the other ones, the good ones, armigers. Yeah. So 2 of them, and I was like asking about profiles and stuff, like gun profiles at the start of the game, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's all strength 9 or 10." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to kill the armigers first then, because they're the only ones with like strength 14 melter or whatever." So my turn 1, Angron went into one, Bloodthirst went into the other, killed both of them.
Held hands together as they ran across the table.
And then it was a weird one. It was going really well. My turn 1, like Angron went through an armiger into and like tagged an exorcist, killed that in the next turn, then tagged the castigator, killed that, and then like just basically ran very slowly through his deployment zone, killing tanks. And on the other flank, the Bloodthirster took the charge of the novitiates, killed all 10, including the Palatine on the swing back. Palatine then just got back up, because that's a rule they have, or like sisters can do something with miracle dice that brings them back on 1 wound, which was annoying, because then the Bloodthirster was down to 2 wounds at this point. She charged in his next turn. I overwatched because the Bloodthirster has a heavy flame of breath. Only got 1 wound through, which he just miracle dice saved. And then he killed the Bloodthirster, who then exploded and killed the Palatine, which was very funny too. Angron didn't actually die in that game. As I say, he just like very slowly made his way
I mean, like once you had the armigers taken out, it was going to be super difficult for Angron to actually go down.
The other things that happened that so in the same turn as the Palatine came back and then killed the Bloodthirster,
which is a very cinematic moment in my mind.
It
right?
is. It is.
Yeah.
So I then had the Lord of Skulls just parked on the middle objective. Fine. Just being a nuisance, like a big beefy boy. And in that same turn, he charged a Penitent Engine, just one of them, into my wounded Lord of Skulls. And I was like, he started with the Palatine, killed the Bloodthirster, so I interrupted with the Lord of Skulls, thinking even a wounded Lord of Skulls will kill a fucking Penitent Engine. I did 0 damage. I did 4 damage out of 5 wounds to the Penitent Engine. The important thing is it survived, which it shouldn't have, I feel. And then hit back and killed the Lord of Skulls, who then exploded. and laid waste to the middle of the board with his D6 plus 2 mortal wound explosion.
El Clasico. Yeah, it's another classic Jack explosion.
And then in that same turn, he had Strat Reserve Morvenval and her Paragon Warsuits, and they came on and shot 3 multi-melters, so 6 shots, I want to say, at the Abominant, and hit with most things because he had 4 rerolls to hit and wound because of Morvenval. Basically, he got 3 through to the damage phase, 4 through to the damage phase. Miracle Dice 1 to a 6, and then just rolled 3 natural 6s and did 24 damage. 24 damage to my. No, in fact, it was only 3. It was only 3. He didn't use a Miracle Dice, and he just rolled 3 natural 6s, and he was in Melter range, and he did 24 damage to my 22 wound knight.
That's so cool.
And I was like, it's only strength 9. I'm toughness 12. It's not going to hurt me.
What's the worst that could happen? But you forgot it was the Abominant, and whatever the worst that could happen with the Abominant will happen.
Like, I knew I was going to lose him because, like, if they didn't shoot him to death, they were going to charge him and kill him with full rerolls to hit and wound. But, like, I was at least expecting to make them make the charge. So I was in a really good position until that point, and in that fight, or in his turn, I lost 3 of my 4 big boys, and the only one he didn't kill was the one that could res. So.
Great. I mean, good target priority, right?
Yeah. The other highlight was he had a lot of shooting left at the end of the game, shot it all into my 2 spawn, and they tanked the entire shooting phase with their 4-up shrug. And one of them had 2 wounds that he then healed the next turn. So that was funny.
What an asshole.
Because it all came, the game then all pretty much, or it didn't all come down to, but like I could have made it a lot closer than it ended up being. It came down to, I pulled Storm Hostile Objective. The spawn needed to charge 3 Seraphim through a wall, which he did. He made the charge and then killed 2 of them instead of all 3, which meant the objective was contested, and I didn't get Storm Hostile Objective or Primary. So I think the score was like 92-83 or something.
Yeah, we're still really close.
Instead of like 92-90.
Yeah,
92-83 instead of 92-90, I believe. Storm Hostile Objective would have been 5, and I would have got. Shit, that actually may have won me the game. Okay. Fine. Because 5 primary and 5 storm hostile objective. So I lost 83-92 in that game, but it was a very fun game.
Really nice Painted Sisters army as well. It was actually really the one that I voted for best painted army. Was the
Morvenval was glorious.
The Morvenval was phenomenal. Really, really beautiful. It was a really cool game. I got to watch quite a lot of it actually because my game was over very quickly.
So you had knights again, right?
I had knights. I had the Castellan. I had the Melta Fist knight. I had the Gatling Cannon Battle Cannon knight, which fucking hell, I had that guy marked for death straight away after what he did in the last game. And there was 3 Armigers and a Vindicator Assassin, I believe. So, we were playing on quarters. I was just like, fucking knights, 2 games in a row, man. It ain't it. We were playing in quarters, lined up most of my army on the quarter, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to manifest some big energy here and go first. And I did. And Angron took out the Gatling Cannon Battle Cannon Knight, not before he was overwatched by the Tyrant, which got 2 hits with the Volcano Lance. And I was just like, cool. This is going to go well. Got 2 wounds through, and I made double 4s, baby.
Nice.
It's easy when you just roll 4s.
D6 plus 8 damage?
It is, yeah, it is. It is big damage. Could have wiped Angron off the face of the earth. So Angron took, I think, did he even take a wound going in? I'm not sure. Absolutely body slammed that night. Then Invocatus and the 6/8 bounds took 1 armature down to 1 wound, so they multi-charged, took 1 down to 1 wound, took the other down to 3 wounds. So again, I was kind of like feeling pretty good after round 1. Fairly strong position. So what happened then was Angron stood in front of the Knight Castellan and the Knight with the Melta and Fist and just said no for the Knight player's first turn. He just said no and took everything. He went down to like 6 wounds between the shooting and the combat, but he lived, and he clapped the Knight with a gauntlet down to like, I think 1 or 2 wounds. Then obviously Invocatus and the homies just swept down, rescued him from that Knight in my next turn. which was great because at that point the tyrant was like locked up in combat. I like consolidated into him against the edge of the board, so he couldn't actually break out of combat other than walking over me, which he wasn't able to do because Angron was still kind of like blocking the way basically. So he was just sort of stuck there shooting into combat where he could. And yeah, then I just had Khorne and the boys come in and Glavemo come in as well, sweep the last of the armature off, and just took out the tyrant. Game was basically over. I think possibly top of round 3. Like I think top of round 3, I was kind of just like cool, committed my entire army into the middle. Took everything out except the Vindicator, who then shot Angron in the head and killed him, which was really really funny. But yeah, it was kind of a by the numbers game. Was like really fun, and my opponent was like really sporting about it. Just one of those things, his dice didn't really pop off with the Knight Tyrant, or the Castellan, sorry. And I just kept rolling 4+ invulnerable saves, which was pretty ignorant of me as well. So that was that game. I think it was 100-28.
Yeah,
it was a big win. It was a big win. So that I was feeling pretty okay after that game. It like wasn't, I would say, like a massively interesting game because kind of like everything worked really well for me, and nothing worked for him. So it was just one of those moments where it's just like, I'm sorry, man, it's going to happen, and Angron's just going to be this guy, and he definitely was. So that was that. Yeah.
Sure.
So
yeah, game 6,
final rounds, game 6.
So we were both 2 and 3 at this point.
Yes.
2 and 3. Yes, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
2 and 3. Wait.
Both of us are 2 and 3.
Yes, because I just lost our lead sisters. So then game 6, we were, slightly lower than mid at that point, and you matched into Eldar.
I matched into the Eldar that you had already played specifically.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I matched into a pretty gross Thousand Suns list.
A very gross Thousand Suns list. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like Magnus, 2 squads of 10 flamers, 10 block of Scarab Cults, some Zangor Enlightened, Araman, some 5-man rubrics. I think a Hellbrute was the only niche thing. It's like a hammer plasma cannon bro. And I was like, I don't know what Thousand Suns do really. Like I know they're good, but I don't really know what they do. So I'm just going to frontline everything. And throw everything I can at Magnus because he also frontline Magnus. And I was like, sure. So I ended up going first, which was obviously very good. Got advanced and charge again, auto advanced Angron 6, and landed 2 inches away from Magnus. He overwatched with one of the 10-man bricks of flamers. Almost misplayed the rule, which made me shit myself, which is Magnus gives an aura of +1 to wound for psychic weapons. And he didn't realize the warp flamers were not psychic weapons. So I was like, oh, cool, he's winning me on 6s. Oh, no, wait, it's 5s. Oh, no, thank God it's 6s. So I'm glad I checked that one. And Angron went into Magnus, just Magnus. And I think you looked over as I was like shaking. Like, because you turned around and you were like, has he?
I think I overheard one of you saying, that's him done, I'll pick him up. And I was just like, oh, it's Angron. He's gone.
Oh no, Angron's already gone. And then as we were making eye contact, you saw the guy picking up Magnus and you were like, what?
Yeah, it was wild. Absolutely wild.
So yeah, Angron one-shot Magnus and then tagged the Flamer squad, and that was game, pretty much.
Yeah, I wonder, do you think it was faster my Knights game or your Thousand Suns game? Because they were both
Thousand Suns game. Like it was the end of turn 1, the game was done.
I think you pretty much watched my entire Eldar game.
Yeah, the end of my turn 1, the game was done. He, by the start of his turn 3, he had 4 rubrics on an objective, and the 10-man brick of Scarabs in Deep Strike still. And they came in and immediately got shot in the face by the Lord of Skulls for a full round of shooting, and then Angron charged them because he had a character and I +1 to wound.
There was no need to do that, Jack. There was just no need to do that.
And he killed like 8 of them and the Lord. And just it was fucking sure. It was like it was a very, very fast. And it finished 117. So
oh wow, was it okay?
Yeah. Including painted. So
yes.
he
seemed like a really nice dude though.
he was a nice dude, but it was just one of those stompings. Like
Yeah.
Angron probably didn't have any right to kill Magnus. I didn't even roll that well on damage. Like I just got quite a few attacks through. And then he started failing 4-ups a lot on other key stuff. I did lose Angron, and I did lose the Bloodthirster. Angron then immediately came back because why the fuck wouldn't he?
Of course, yeah, of course.
This was the
all
game
the
where
Angron resurrections were tied up in your army list, apparently.
this is the game where the Abominant just stood on an objective in the far corner and did fucking nothing because he wasn't in range of any of his guns for the whole game.
Yep.
I think he killed 2 Zonga Enlightened, and that was it.
Yep.
This was also the game that my Bloodmaster actually made combat. He killed 2 Zonga Enlightened. That's pretty fucking dicey with 5 attacks. So, yeah, like it was just one of those games. Like I rolled really hot, he rolled really bad in the early stages of the game, and it just killed it.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, you had a much more interactive game that went a bit longer. So you were playing the Eldar
almost
game.
to. I think there was 3 minutes left in the round by the time it concluded. It was a real close one. So I played the Eldar list that you did with the Webway Gates, with the Wave Serpents, the Fire Prisms, the Dire Ventures, Guardians, and Avatar. And Banshees, which, my god, Banshees are really bad. Really, really bad. Who knows what they want to fight into, because they couldn't even kill Jackals.
Yes.
So yeah, I did not go first in this game, which was a little bit rough. Angron got a little bit creams by Fire Prisms, took him down to like 6 wounds. Again, I was just like, now is the time to spend CP rerolls and 4+ invulnerable saves, because if I don't, the game will be over very quickly. And I did, and I made one, which was basically all I needed to make sure he didn't go down to like dead, because I think he was on 6 wounds at the end of turn 1. So then my opponent very cleverly screened out Angron from charging the wave or the Fire Prisms by using a Wave Serpent to body block, which Angron was kind of like, cool, what if I just draw the perfect cards like Storm Hostile Objective and Secure No Man's Land, and I just get a load of points for killing that Wave Serpent anyway, which I was like, alright, that works for me. So he flew forward, got overwatched, managed to survive the overwatch, which was really lucky. Overwatch by Fire Prism, that is. And yeah, at that point I was feeling pretty okay, because the Wave Serpent had been taken care of, and then on the top flank of the board I had like rushed a Wave Serpent with Invocatus and all the 8-band, and because it was like really pushed up against the edge of the board, I basically like completely encircled it. Now I'm not really sure how you're supposed to do disembarking from vehicles that have a small base and quite a large hull, but and I don't think you're actually supposed to disembark from the hull, but I rolled it that way anyway, because I thought it would have felt pretty bad if like all the Guardians died inside the Wave Serpent. So we were kind of like, let's just do it from the hull. They still had to hop out 6 inches, so they were going to die on like 1s and 2s, because they are only 1 wound models. And I think like 4 or 5 of them died. He rolled really poor on the emergency disembark. So that was really rough. And then it was sort of just about controlling the center. So I had the favorite of Khorne Mo and his 5 berserkers positioned basically like right up against the wall, and the Avatar emerged from the Webway Gate, which was just totally sick. I was just like, oh my god, this is so cool. And he walked up and fucking whiffed it. He killed like 3 berserkers, and favored Mo was just like, okay, cool, I guess I'm alive. That was surprising. So then Glaive Mo and 10 of the best homies got out of the bang boss and just rocked up into the middle of the board. I think you were there for that mortal wound roll as well, because
I was there for that.
Yep, they sent the Avatar straight to the Shadow Realm.
Even halved, he did 8 mortal wounds.
Yeah, it was foul. Now, I did need the Eviscerator Berserkers, who I think fought for pretty much the first time that entire tournament, because Glaive Mo was just taking all the glory.
Fuck up.
But yeah, so they dominated the mid, which was obviously a massive upswing for me. Really, really big. Now, Angron had died at this point, but I'd rolled to resurrect him, so he was in reserve. And then in my Eldar player's next turn, I ingressed him in. He did get shot up a bit, but that was kind of okay. Then Karen and the homies rushed one of the Fire Prisms, and Angron did as well. So Angron cleaned up Fire Prism basically. The other one did jump out in the next turn and kill him again, which was really funny. There's that iconic picture of the Fire Prism aiming up Angron's backside, which was
just
really, really good. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, unfortunately, and like it was still quite dicey for me for a while in terms of like actual footprint on the board. It was very much like I have to trade the exact correct units into the exact correct units, otherwise everything goes to hell. And like there was Banshees running around in my backlines as well, which was just so annoying. There was like a Farseer too who was he chased down the Pitmaster, I'm pretty sure, and just kicked the crap out of him. who did just terrible all tournaments, new model syndrome and all that. But you know, I had that glorious moment where I had Glavemo, who had chopped down the webway gate as well, just out of spite, like purely out of spite. Glavemo and the homies were on his home field objective, drew capture enemy outposts and behind enemy lines. It's just like, right, you can't ask for more than that. So the points really started to kind of swing up in my direction then. And yeah, there was some kind of cleanup fights in the middle of the board. Nothing too important, I would say. And yeah, I finished out with another fairly strong win for me. I think it was, I can't remember actually what the score was in that game.
158 to you.
Yeah, it was a decent win.
Yeah.
So we both finished with three wins
finished in 3
and 3 losses. And how are the standings, Jack?
So of the 62, I think, players at the tournament, Dara finished in 29th, 3-3. They did it on strength of schedule, but we did count up battle points while we were waiting for the placings. And Dara got 466 battle points across the weekend. I, with my meme list, funny man meme list, finished in 28th with 467 battle points. So
1 position above and 1 battle point more than me.
Yep.
You gloated a lot.
I did. I will continue to gloat.
And you absolutely deserve to. You absolutely deserve to. You did phenomenal for the list that you had. I'm going to say it live to all the people here, everyone who's watching.
It was a good list.
It was a really good list, but you played... Well, no, it wasn't a really good list. It was a trash list.
It was a really good list.
No, it's not. You played really well, and you had to manage...
The Abominant's trash. The Abominant's only trash.
Yeah.
He's out. I've replaced him. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess list tweaks then.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about list tweaks. Yeah.
Let's zoom through some list tweaks.
Well, were you happy with how you placed in the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really care about placing. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, but like, were you pleased with the outcome of the tournament? I guess.
Yeah, like it was I had a good time.
Yeah.
So it's good fun weekend.
Yeah.
So
I think I would have loved to go 4-2, but hey, I'll take 3-3 with a World Eaters list. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
No complaints from my end.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a good weekend, wasn't it?
It was really good. Yeah, it was really, really good. But yeah, let's, I suppose, talk about... You want to talk about list tweaks? What do you think about doing? For what it's worth, I'm not going to talk about list tweaks for mine because I'm probably going to bring the exact same list to the LGT because I really enjoyed playing it.
Your next tournament's with the LGT, right? So
yes, my next one is LGT.
The RTT and then the GT. Yeah. I've got an RTT between now and then I've got my club, local club is running potentially running an LGT practice RTT, which I'll also go to. Basically, I have 2 list variations, both the same theme. This is mostly, I know I've talked about taking Chaos Knights to LGT. Basically, I can't get the models that I want for that list. All right, it's looking like I'm not going to be able to get the models in time because War Dogs are sold out everywhere. So I'm looking at running a variation on the list I ran this weekend just because it was really, really fun. The list that I'm taking to my tournament in 2 weeks' time, or a week and a half at this point in time, is basically I'm going to drop the Abominant because he's 455 points of useless, and I'm going to take a Knight Desecrator instead, who's 450 points. I'm going to run him with the Warp Strike Claw, so the Strength 20 flat damage 8 smash with like 5 attacks, or 10 attacks at Strength 10 flat 3, I think. But the important thing is his special. He's toughness 12. He's 3 out of 5. He's got 22 wounds. The important bit is he's got a turbo laser destructor or something like that. That is D3 shots blast.
The ultimate las cannon, basically.
Strength 20 minus 5, D6. No, D3 plus 6 or something damage. Or D6 plus 3, something like that. And is hitting on 2s, importantly, which I noticed going through the data sheet the other day. Is very nice. I think it's flat 3 shots. I'm getting mixed up with the Volcano Cannon because I'm also looking at the Tyrant. It's flat 3 shots.
Volcano is D3.
D3
Destructor is
D3
flat 3.
blast. Yeah. So the Desecrator, importantly, also against monsters' vehicles, gets devastating wounds.
Yep.
With his ranged weapon.
Really good. Really, really good.
So that's pretty nice.
Sure is. He's a
dropping
spicy data sheet, that guy.
Dropping the Abominant for the Desecrator frees up 5 points. My list was already 5 points under, so I was looking at what I could get for 10 extra points. Dara, fucking heretic that he is, suggested dropping the Spawn for extra Jackals. I will not be doing that because the Spawn were the MVPs. They were so good.
Sure.
So I'm instead doing is switching out the Bloodmaster for Skulltaker, the named Bloodmaster, just because he is slightly better. He gets an extra attack, gets an extra wound, which is actually probably the best bit of it. And he has rules for killing characters. So like maybe he has some extra function in like
Yeah, he's kind of like a mole that can deep strike in, basically, right?
Yeah,
yeah, and he can do
I
all
mean,
the same good action.
Yeah,
energy.
I see him performing the same role as my Skullmaster. I think.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then maybe with a bonus like odd assassinate here or there. So that's the list I'm taking to my next RTT.
The
other variant that you said you liked less.
I do like this variant less. By the way, before we go on any more with this, now would be the time if you want to get questions in for Q&A at the end of the stream. Send them into chat now and I'll let them pile up while Jack goes through this bit.
Yeah. The other list variant still drops the Abominant because, again, he was trash.
He's gotta go.
This time I swapped the Abominant for a Knight Tyrant with a Volcano Cannon, which is the D3+1, and has just silly amounts of damage like D6+8 damage and stupid shit like that. Also, hilariously, looking at the data sheet the other day, has a 12-inch deep strike denial on a massive fucking base. So he's just going to sit on a home objective and shoot. He's got a plasma decimator as well, which I think is like D6+3 shots blast, and it's like a marine killer, like strength 8 -2 flat 2, or you can overcharge to strength 9 -3 flat 3. I think. He has various other guns like 2 twin melter guns, which I noticed while building him. Some anti-titanic missiles that are devastating wounds as well, which is pretty cool. It's a good, and importantly as well, 2 up, 5 up, and toughness 13. So him and the Lord of Skulls become just 2 fucking bricks that don't move. So there's him to make the points for him because he's like 555 to the Abominant's 455. I drop 1 squad of Jackals for a second squad of Spawn. Because Spawn are great. 4-up shrugs are fucking obnoxious.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Especially combined with the fucking they're like kind of light Necron warriors because you regen D3 wounds in each command phase, not just yours. If you have a wounded Spawn, and they're toughness 5, and they now have a 4-up save base, which is funny. So they're in a sweet spot for cover, and then a 4-up shrug is just, as I say, fucking obnoxious. So then the last thing is I have to drop the Bloodthirster because he was all right, but he wasn't like insane. He wasn't like a standout performer. I'm wondering if he was just like overshadowed by Angron a bit, but he wasn't a standout. So it would be dropping him and instead putting in a Soul Grinder, who is toughness 11 still, and has a 3-up, 4-up, which is pretty nice. Has a 2d6 heavy flamer, has a 3-shot battle cannon, and has 2 like high strength D6 damage melee weapons. So I think he actually has more attacks than the Bloodthirster, I think, at relatively high strength and D6 damage. He's also a vehicle rather than a monster, I think, which means he can tank shock. So some nice shit like that. That's the other variant, and I'll probably run that at my club RTT if I get a chance. If not, I'll be running it at the Friday RTT for LGT, I think.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, same theme to both of those lists.
Yeah. I think mine is kind of, it's really not going to change much outside of a points change, which I feel like Angron going up, everything else coming down, probably going to come out in the wash for my list.
Probably balance out,
Yeah, it's not going to. And also, I really like the army. It looks pretty cool as well. Like, a lot of people seem to enjoy it over the weekend. And I'd like to flex it a little bit more at the LGT as well, so why not?
Get another best painted award.
Yeah, I did manage to pick up a few.
For anyone who hasn't heard, Dara got voted by the people as best painted. He also won the judges' best painted, and he came runner up on the best overall, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So missed out very narrowly on the golden ticket to the GW event in the US.
And I found out afterwards I think the one for best overall was for the grand narrative, which is what I really would have loved to go to.
Which is really cool, yeah.
Oh man. Not if I would have known I would have done anything differently, but like I didn't realize there was a golden ticket going for that. And when I came like second, I was obviously didn't expect to come second because I only won 3 games. Yeah. And then saw like the person who came first like get the golden ticket, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Well, like it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But
No, that was cool.
as I said on Instagram, like winning a best painted award in Warhammer World has been like a goal for me since I was like a kid. Since I was like first into the hobby, you know, just this like hallowed land of Warhammer World, basically, of like, oh, you know, have to like go there at some point, play in a tournament, and you know, someday win best painted, and I did, which was really really cool. And not only that, managed to pick up like, you know, 3 awards in total, which was really really phenomenal. And I was actually really happy I got best overall because knowing that people that like really enjoyed playing against me is like obviously, you know, for like the Red Path and stuff, where it's like we kind of push that narrative the whole time of like be a good opponent and stuff. Knowing that it's not just like talk and that people are actually really enjoying their games against me is like obviously quite a good feeling.
It's good.
And yeah, look, trophies are trophies. Like it's validation for all that good stuff. So yeah, that was really cool too. So yeah, not going to change the list much because if it keeps winning,
Ain't broke, don't fix.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a ton of fun to play. So let's get into a little few questions. So Rose and D, what was the most unusual, uncommon unit you saw at the tournament? If not the Webway Gate or GSE Shadow Sword, which definitely
was the Webway Gate. It was the Webway Gate for me.
Oh, thanks.
I think it was the Webway Gate. Yeah,
8. Love to see it. So yeah, what was the most unusual one for you outside of those 2 jump out ones?
Seeing the Triumph St. Catherine on the field is always a good thing.
Man, the fact that thing can attach to a squad of like 20 fucking sisters, Jesus, it's like the whole thing's walking around and it's just like they're like so many ablative wounds, and then you get to it, it's got 18 attacks and 18 wounds, but it's only toughness 3.
It's really cool.
It's wild.
Yeah, because it's a bunch of Cantus, isn't it? Like it's 6 Cantus.
Yeah.
I love seeing that model. Like it's just really cool.
It's a phenomenal model, but definitely one of the more unusuals out there. I think for me, like the Aquilin Terminators in the Custodes list, I was just like, I don't think I've ever seen these models before. They're
so cool.
They're so cool.
Aquilon Terminators are really cool.
They look really so cool different to the normal Custodes Terminators. The massive power fist, man. Yeah. And it was like in my game, it was like they didn't move out from the home field for the whole game. But when they came out at the end of the game, it was very much like, oh, the boys are ready to party. And I was just like, this is so sick. I love seeing these guys. Yeah. And they are hot trash. They are so bad. It's just not even funny. They are trash. But it was really cool to see, like, I feel like there was like a lot of meta lists, but not a lot of necessarily meta choices, which is always nice to see. You know?
A lot of meta factions, but not necessarily like meta lists. Yeah. So like embodied by the GSC list, but
for sure. How has this tournament impacted your opinions on 10th edition, Jack?
I mean, I've formed opinions of 10th edition now because I hadn't really played it. These were games like 3 to 8 of 10th for me. Like it's not that different to 9th. Like there's some annoying shit that is different. So like the terrain rules are fucking weird. And Fly, Jesus Christ,
Fly is pretty
Fly. I don't like that, but like tactical is fucking glorious.
I really like the terrain layout that they had for this event.
The terrain layout was really good. Yeah, the terrain rules were a bit weird, but the terrain was really good and really standardized, which I put in my feedback. Actually, was like, I enjoyed how much more standardized it was this time than at first. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, tactical is really good. Really enjoy playing tactical missions. It made games really fun. Like, I like.
It's exciting.
The extra layer of like variability kind of thing. Yeah, it's really good.
Absolutely. Ryan, I
see
you. What's up, homie? Good to see you in chat. So I'm going through like the full character arc in answer to that question of 10th edition. Started out as like I really, really wasn't vibing with it. Then, you know, hit my first couple of RTTs, was like starting to gel a little bit more with it as I sort of ham-fisted a list that played exactly like how I normally like to play the game into 10th edition, regardless of whether it was good or not. And then I think this weekend was kind of like the epitome of getting to that point where it was like the game is still really, really fun. The game can be played against some of what is perceived as the top armies in the game, and you can still have a really, really amazing time. I had a phenomenal time against Eldar. Really close game against Custodes. That was like peak kind of tactical decision making. Two great games against knights, which went completely different ways. So there's all these like different outcomes that like the stats as you look at them, the numbers that you see on Reddit, that you see on social media, they don't tell like those stories. People will look at our results and say, "Oh, world leaders 3-3. Those guys must have had a pretty rough time." That's not how it was at all. The time was phenomenal. It was so much fun. The camaraderie, the chats between rounds with different people, the way the games were played, everyone was like playing by intent. Everything was super above board, which was really, really nice. Like for me, the tournament felt amazing. It felt like reassuring, I would say. Like I almost canceled my ticket to this tournament a few months ago. I was just like not wanting to go. And I'm so glad I did go because I had a really amazing time. It was obviously a great time hanging out with you, as it always is. But, I think we went into that tournament being like, it's just going to be pints and memes, and the games are going to be like this thing that happens to the side that we don't care about. But it wasn't really that. It was like the games were so
pints
fun.
And memes. There were lots of pints and memes.
There was lots of pints and memes, but the games were also incredible.
Yeah,
so
the games were incredible.
Yeah, it finished out like really, really positive for me, and I'm super excited for the LGT now. Like I can't wait to like the LGT is only like 5 weeks away or something like that, and it already feels too long.
I've got so much to paint.
But like I've got the itch again, I'm just like, man, I need more tournaments.
That's a great way of saying it. Like I was chatting to you on Discord like on fucking Monday when I had the day off. I was like, I booked a tournament. I booked another tournament.
Yeah,
I booked another tournament.
Yeah, it was.
I've also got the itch. I think it apart from anything else has got me back into hobbying quite a bit. Like painting the Abominant was sort of the start, and then like being able to slap that list on the table was really fun. So now it's like it's got me back into like painting to like it's got me with deadlines basically because I want to paint to try new stuff out on the table. So yeah, like I've finished Skull Taker already. He shout out to Element Games. Ordered him Monday. He arrived yesterday. I painted him this morning. So that's
use
done.
Our affiliate link in the description below for more quick time model dispatches. Yeah. No, it was it was just really good. And look, I'm feeling really positive about 10th again. I know the meta is not in the best place, but I think I've very much gotten to the point where I just don't really care that much about how how perfectly balanced the game is, because at the end of the day, I went into this tournament with you, and the environment, the ecosystem, you could say is incredibly unbalanced right now, possibly the most unbalanced that it's ever been since I started playing the game competitively. And I would definitely put that as one of my top 3 tournaments in terms of the fun that I had. Just like how good the vibe was and everything. Like maybe it's not quite hitting top 3, but it's definitely like kind of top 5 era, pushing into top 3. I'm not. It was right up there with Fest in terms of like how fun it was, and just how everyone kind of conducted themselves and everything. So like you can say like balance is one thing, but I think if you go into the game with the right attitude and the right type of energy, you can still have so much enjoyment with the game. And that was my big takeaway. So before we wrap this one up, if anyone else has any final questions for myself or Jack regarding the tournament or anything like that.
There was one. Have you thought about maybe using the Lancer?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I mean, I do have a Lancer now. New one sprue. Again,
there was a Lancer in Warhammer World all weekend, and every time we walked past it, you were like, I shouldn't buy it.
Well,
I shouldn't buy it.
So the backstory to that was so I pre-ordered a Lancer from Element because it was in my night buying spree, and they weren't sure when they were getting. They'd sold out their pre-order stock. They weren't sure when they were getting another one. So they set the dispatch date as like 9th of Feb 24. And I was like, cool. I mean, I'm just going to leave the order there, and maybe it'll turn up as a nice surprise at some point. And it did. I got the email on Monday that it had been dispatched. It came with my Soul Grinder and my Skull Taker. So he's here now. And
how are you feeling about the Lancer as like a takeable unit?
He's 465 points, which is quite expensive. Like the Desecrator at 450 feels like a bit of a steal. When you look at the other big knights who are like, Abominant's 455, Lancer's 465, Spoiler's 470. And those are all the Questoris kind of sized knights that I've been like considering. for that role because they're the T12 knights basically. Um, so I have been looking at him. I think I like if I'm gonna take more pure melee other big stuff. I'd like having some shooting because it is helpful sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So like that's the reason I did the tyrant list. Because there's a bit more shooting on him. The soul grinder has some shooting as well. So um it's just it's like softening stuff up, and especially like with tactical missions, being able to reach out across the board is pretty nice.
Absolutely. Yep. Very
So
good point.
the Lancer is a bit too, in short, basically, the Lancer is a bit too like skew melee for me. I know he does have a gun, like his lance has a fucking laser pointer thing. But he's a bit too skew melee for me.
You like that little bit of duality, which is fair.
Yeah.
Rin wants to know what our favorite biscuits are. Chocolate hobnobs for me.
Chocolate hobnob. Yeah, I was
it's,
going to say that.
Super good biscuit.
It's not even close.
No, it's not. Ryan spent loads of money on models. Quite a lot of people in the event did that. I think I ran into James at one point in the shop, and he was like, "I have 3 models here, and 2 of them are for armies I don't even own." It was just
nice.
Like,
yeah,
I had to really resist buying some of the Warhammer World kind of fracty boys. But I did. I was quite brave, I would have said. We walked into the Forge shop twice and didn't come out with anything, which was incredible.
Yeah. The only reason I didn't buy anything was because they didn't have any War Dogs. I was hoping they would.
Yeah, it was it was really good. And yeah, I didn't buy anything because I didn't have room to bring anything back.
Yeah.
Good problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much our experience there. So by and large, an incredibly positive experience at Warhammer Worlds. Obviously, see a couple of people in chat who were there. Great to have met you folks. Great to have played against you, James.
Yeah.
See you there. And look, hopefully more times in the future. We're going to be at the LGT in 5 weeks, I believe. 6 maybe at a push. It's so close. It's close.
It's the end of September. Yeah,
tons of people are going to the LGT. It's going to be super hype. Me, Jack, fingers crossed, Jamie is going to be there. It's going to be super, super, super awesome. And I absolutely can't wait now. At this point, everyone who's kind of hung out in the stream, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate like all of you with the comments and the good chat and all that stuff. Mark, thank you for the donation for the super chat. Keeps the stream and the channel going. We love to see that. But yeah, Jack, any final thoughts, any final words before closing this one out?
Oh, my dog's barking. So
I think that's mine actually.
Oh, is it yours?
Yeah,
I can hear a dog barking. I was trying to work out if
I'm pretty sure it's Kylo.
Yeah, it was really fun event. It reignited my passion for the hobby, which is good. It's been waning 100%. A little bit, so yeah, that was good.
We're back in a big way, ready to go. So yeah, until the next one, folks, I'll be on Twitch tomorrow evening doing a little bit of hobby streaming because that's back in the menu now. And we'll have
tomorrow.
Yeah, normal schedule resuming as of this weekend and next week. New episode of All Around the World Leaders coming out on Spotify on Friday. Look out for that one with Tanya Gates. It's going to be really good. So, thanks so much for hanging out, folks. Until the next one, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill